serve in the shadows, we carry the weight with stories that matter. Don't let them wait. And every story matters, from bases to war zones, from tearful reunions to cold nights alone. Spouses and veterans, hearts that won't quit, telling the truth about all of it.
Hello and welcome back, everyone. It's just another day in the life as a military wife, and this week we had the exciting opportunity to sit down with YouTuber Reina Creole and talk with her about her family history, specifically her grandfather's service in World War II, and help her unpack and understand more of what he went through and potentially find resources so she can gain a better insight into his experience. I'm super excited to have had her on the show and just to talk to her about also what she did as a government employee, someone who helped build tools for the military. So let's jump right into our discussion. As always, I am your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife. All right, so I'm going to let Lorena introduce herself.
Okay, well, first of all, thanks, Sam, for having me on. I'm Reina Creole. I'm a content creator. So I talk about sci-fi, pop culture analysis, film appreciation. I do some gaming, but I also talk a lot about my family's history, as that's been a project of mine for over 10 years. Something that my World War II vet grandfather impressed upon me when I was young. And he basically said, if anybody's going to break down the family history, it'll be you. Because one of the things that he found out, or I guess was exposed to when he was over in Europe, was that he would meet other soldiers and some of them would talk about their family history. And he realized that he didn't have one that was written down or knew anything about that. So that's kind of why I do that, and why I drop a lot of that in with what I do on my channel, to like inform, educate, and like inspire other people to find out about their family's history.
That's really awesome. So, was it just your grandfather who served, or did you have other family members who served in the military as well?
I know my uncle did, uncle by marriage. He served in Vietnam, so he would kind of tell me stories. But the only other relative that I knew personally who would tell me their stories was my paternal grandfather.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So he was served in Europe during World War II?
Yes. Mm-hmm. He
Okay.
served in
Do
Europe.
you
Almost got sent to Japan, but after they dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, he that nixed that.
Yeah. So what branch of the military was he? Was he Army? Was he Army Air Corps? What was he doing?
He was in the Army.
Okay. And what kind of job was he doing in the Army?
Well, from what I understand, in the Army, even though he had like the basic training and all of that during boot camp, he was a cook in the Army.
Okay.
And one of the reasons that he joined the Army is, well, first of all, he was born in Mississippi, like near, I think it's Tylertown, but it's between, I want to say maybe about no more than 50 miles north of Biloxi, of the shoreline there in the Gulf of Mexico. So he only had like a fifth grade education. So he enlisted in the Army. And yeah, so he worked as a cook in the Army, was deployed over to Europe, specifically Germany.
Okay. Yeah, that actually wasn't uncommon at the time. That's part of the reason why when Eisenhower became president, he was so fixed on improving the education and fitness levels in the general populace, was because a lot of people were not very well educated or very fit, and that really impacted our fighting ability. So it's actually not surprising to hear that he only had a fifth grade education. That's so sad nowadays because you think you're like that would happen, but it was a different time. We were a different country. So when your grandpa got back, did he end up getting more education or did he just make it do with what he had?
He did. He went back, he got his GED. So he said, he was really proud that, he went back and got his GED because one of the reasons that he was only able to get a fifth grade education was because he needed to go back and work on, his family's farm. Because back then, a lot of people, they worked on farms, and they really could only afford to let their kids go to school for a certain period of time, and then they needed to come back, and help out the family. So yeah, he was proud when he got back. He used the VA, no, not the VA, GI Bill. He used that
Yeah.
to get his GED, and he was so, like, that was his thing, that he was very upset that my father decided not to go to college because he was going to be able to send him, since my dad was a military dependent, but he decided not to do that.
Ah, yeah, but I mean, that's really cool that he set that standard of education. He realized the value, he went back, he changed that, and he set a new family pattern and trajectory of at least getting the high school diploma. Because 'cause I'm sure your dad finished high school probably.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, so that was one thing I did see the more I've studied World War II is it did instill a value of education. People who came back, a lot of soldiers came back realizing, "Hey, this'll open doors. I want to be able to have options," because so many people had been stuck in their same hometown forever, and everyone had always lived there, and they'd never gone and seen anything, and then being able to get out and see the world and meet lots of different people, they realized the world was bigger than their backyard.
That's so very true. Ever since people said, "What did you want to do, be when you grow up?" I said, "I don't know. My grandparents keep telling me I'm supposed to go to college, so I guess it's what I'm supposed to be doing." And I didn't even know what it was. But ever since I was really little, that's what I've been told, especially from them, because my grandfather did say, instead of being stuck in nowhere, Tylertown, Mississippi, he got to travel to the UK. He got to travel, to Germany, even though he loathed being on a ship. And he's like, "I never want to get on another ship ever to go." He said it was the
Oh,
worst, worst.
it was terrible. It was terrible. They didn't have proper sanitation, they didn't have proper bunks, food. It the accounts I've read, it that was probably the worst way to cross the ocean outside of the Pilgrims.
It was the worst. He said when, I guess, when they had to go through a couple of the, I guess, safety musters or whatever, and he had asked, I forget who he asked, one of his buddies or one of the officers, about the locks that they had on the ship. In case one floods, they would lock it down. And he's like, "Well, what happens if someone's on the other side?" And he said, "Well, tough titties, you're stuck."
Mhm.
I'm like, "Wow, that's like messed up." And he's like, "I don't ever want to go on a ship like that ever again." But even with that, he did like the fact that he was able to go places where he'd never been. He got to see people he'd never met before. Would talk about British officers coming by and saying, "You have any tea, old chap?" But he would like say it exactly how they would. And it's like American soldiers like him would actually show them like how to keep the coffee grounds, to
Mhm.
reuse the coffee. It was just, with him meeting so many different people and then coming back, and Sam, like you were saying, it's like there's so much more that's out there, and so many men of his generation who served when they came back, really impressing on their kids to further their education. And if that didn't work, then they indoctrinated the grandkids. And
Oh,
I
heck
say
yeah.
that very, very nicely because because they did in a way. It's like, yeah, you want to go out and better your education and all that. Let me tell you these stories that your parents don't want to sit and listen to me, talk about.
Oh, yeah. Well, so my husband's 3 of his 4 grandparents served in World War II. And when his dad married his mom, both of his in-laws were vets. So my
Ah,
mother-in-law's father and mother both served. That's actually how they met. She was a nurse and he was in the Army Air Corps at first. And so they pulled my father-in-law aside and they're like, "So what do you plan to do to take care of our daughter?" And he's like, "I don't know. I was just gonna work." He's like, "No, you're gonna go get an education now. You're going to college." And so my father-in-law ended up becoming a lawyer because his father-in-law was like, You're gonna prepare and be able to provide for my baby. Go to
mm-hmm,
college now. Like, you want to marry my daughter? Go to college." So yeah, they really did, and education became important to that generation. Um, so he was a cook in the army. Do you know
mm-hmm.
where he was stationed, if he was ever in a frontline position or involved in any major actions? Some of the cooks were.
He he didn't go deeply in depth about it,
Okay.
but bits and pieces of stories that he would tell me, because he said there's some stuff that he does not want to ever recall.
Yeah.
From what I can piece together, like, you know, looking between the lines, I know he was either involved in or helped deal with the fallout of liberating some of the concentration camps in Germany.
Oh,
Um, I don't know specifically which one, and I don't know specifically which area in Germany he was. I think he like wiped that out and kept it very general. But
eh,
from some of the
well,
things that he told me, I think that was one of them.
the thing is, just to be completely straightforward, historically factual, because your family are African American, or you know, he probably was in a colored unit,
Yes, he
probably.
was. He was.
Okay, so if he was in a colored unit, there's only that I can think of off the top of my head 2 colored units that were involved in that. And so that actually narrows it down really quickly. Let me, after this, I'm going to do some research. I think I might be able to figure out that for you because the units that were involved are very well documented. Actually, it was I hate to say colored unit, but that's literally what they were called,
That's
people.
the
So
terminology. No, that doesn't bother me.
YouTube,
That's the
whoever's
term.
listening, please don't be angry. I am being
No,
historically factual.
and I'm
I don't know.
co-signing on this. That's what it was. I mean, World War I. I saw advertisements because some of my ancestors were in World War I. Advertisement said, "Uncle Sam's colored boys are coming." That's
Exactly.
exactly what it says in the
I
print. It wasn't. It was just factual. That's just the way things were, how they worded things. It is what it was. So don't. It's like folks don't
yes.
freak out when
No, I'm like,
when
I'm not trying to be offensive, people. I'm trying to
no.
be historically accurate here. But
It's just
um
what it is. I'm trying to
I know for a
think.
fact one colored unit was actually the first to arrive at one of the concentration camps, but because they didn't have high enough ranking officers, they were not given credit. It was the next unit that arrived that was documented initially as the
Mm-hmm.
liberating unit because they had high enough officers to report it up the chain, or like, does that make sense?
It
The colored
does,
unit had to report to the white unit, so then the unit reported it
and that
up, and the
yeah,
white unit was originally credited for the liberation when it was actually the colored unit who did it.
yeah,
So
because this was before
there's
the military was desegregated. So that's
yeah.
sometimes people forget that that's kind of how things were then. Something else that I do remember that's coming back. I know he said what do you say? One that where he was, German people were so poor. A lot of them would have like they were starving, and
Hmm.
they had plenty of food. So he was actually giving food away to a couple of German families. And one boy, he was just so grateful. He wanted to invite my grandfather back to their house because they literally would have starved without him, feeding them. And another one, he did tell me that they were pretty close to the front lines. And the reason I remember why, he told me this story. He said his particular unit, they had two dogs, one named Hitler and one named Mussolini. Yes, that's exactly what they called them. They were German Shepherds. And I was like, wow, I cannot wait to tell this story at school. So he said at one point where they were walking, they were like, why is it getting brighter and brighter and it's dark? And they're just like, what the heck is going on? And he said this white officer was yelling at him, you blank words are going the wrong way. You're headed towards the front line. He's like, oh, okay. Yeah, well, thank you for telling us that. So yes, that's what he said. And that's like
Oh
the
yeah, then
closest.
by the information you're giving me, I bet you with some of the veterans that I know, we could probably piece together a lot more that you than you think.
I hope so.
It's amazing with all of these stories, and this is what I really wanted to kind of get with talking to you on this, and I want people who are listening to understand. We get bits and pieces when we talk to our relatives who've served. They don't always want to tell us the whole story. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes they don't remember it. I run into this with my husband. He'll be talking to a friend and he's like, "Oh yeah, and then this happened." And I'm like, "And when were you going to tell me?" So it's not malicious or anything. It's just, that's how memory works. But we can take these bits and these pieces that you got from your grandpa, and we can start adding them into what we know about history and other people's accounts. And we can start pinpointing where he was and when he was there and all of those different things, even if we don't know his unit. And that's what a lot of the military historians that I know and what I try to do myself is piece these little pieces together, these breadcrumbs, and start to build an actual record. So do you know his unit by any chance? Because that'll help a lot if you're trying to reconstruct his
Um,
military
you know
records.
what? I'm typing over here on ancestry.com because I might know because I think I got his draft card too, if
So
I'm
while
not
you're looking that up, I'm going to
mistaken.
explain something else to my listeners. You keep
Okay.
looking it up.
Okay.
Um, there was a huge fire at the military records back in, I don't remember the year off the top of my head, and I'm not going to say it because I know the military community will roast me if I say the wrong year. But anyway, we lost the majority of the records that they had there. So there are still records. Personal records are kept in St. Louis, and unit records are kept in DC. So if you know the unit, you might be able to go get the unit history or different things like that, even if the personal record no longer exists. If you want to, there are organizations in St. Louis who will actually go in and look through for those things. There's researchers who will go into the archives for you and pull out this information. It does cost money, because I mean, they don't work for free. It is their livelihood, so they do charge, but it is a wonderful resource if that's what you're looking for. So even if the personal record was lost, you might be able to get a unit record. And that is a really great place to start because maybe someone in his unit wrote a memoir or a book or whatever. Band of Brothers is a really famous one to pull people's attention in on this one because people know Band of Brothers because of the TV show, but there was actually two books written by the people in that unit, and they collaborate each other's stories, and they give different details too, so that allows for a broader perspective. And they've actually been able to clear up some of the historical records because of those two memoirs. Did you find it yet, or you still looking?
I'm looking and uh
Let's
so this
see
is his
that.
draft card. I don't know if it's got the unit on it or not.
No,
Probably
his draft
doesn't.
card won't have his unit on it,
Okay.
but it will tell us when he entered, and you can find stuff based off of that.
Okay.
So, a
Okay.
draft card is a great place to start because with the draft card, you can determine exactly when he entered the military service and where he entered the military service. What happens is with the draft card, you can find out where they signed up and what day they signed up, and then the name they put on their military record. And from there, you can use that to track down other records because a lot of records will reference when they joined or, those sorts of things or how long they've been in. And if you know when they got in, you know if this person with the same name is the same person because they got in the same state around the same time.
Mm,
And so you can start looking and matching up those sorts of things. And that's what we had to do with my husband's grandpa who served in the Pacific. We didn't know his unit, or at least I didn't when I started researching his information. We knew he was a Marine, we knew some basic stuff, but we were able to find um his initial records and stuff. We were able to find a base record to figure out when he got in. I don't remember if it
mhm,
was a draft guard particularly because he got in prior. It's been a while since I've looked at these, but anyway, his initial record saying when he entered, it wasn't a draft card because he got in prior to Pearl Harbor, so it wouldn't have been a draft card. But anyway, his initial records of processing into the military, and then we were able to use that against other stuff. And his name was unique-ish, but not
mhm.
super unique. So we were able to use that to then verify that the person we found was actually him because it had the right state of origin and date of enlistment. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, there's a lot of ways to track these things down. Like your grandpa's story is really amazing. And I really am, I'm going to start nerding out about this. I want to find out what concentration camp it was
Oh, please,
because
please do.
all of those were really well documented. So once we can pinpoint which one it was or which ones it could have been,
Mhm.
then we can start pulling in external accounts and you can start to piece in the environment he was in. So here's another thing another tip and trick I want to give to people who are trying to do what you're doing, piece together family military service. There are AI search engines who can help you with this. And I will put them
Oh.
in the description for this episode. But there are AI search engines that you can say, okay, I know this, this, and this. You can put in everything you know, and then it'll start to pull off all of the different websites, but even ones in different languages. So I was doing family history research
Mm,
on my family in Sicily back in the 1700s, and I put it into chat. One of the not it wasn't Chat GPT. I think it was Perplexity. I'll have to go back and look. But he was able to pull out all of this information, and some of it was actually translated from Italian history sources in Italian. I don't read Italian. And so there might be German records, French records that exist about all of this. And you won't have to find the record and then get it translated yourself. The AI can just do that for you. So there's a lot of
wow.
really great resources now that people are just learning how to
Mhm.
use these to help with family history.
Oh, no, that's amazing. And I had used AI for other things. I had not thought about using it for for this. That's so cool.
I had the amazing opportunity to go to Roots Tech, which is a family history convention.
I'm jealous already. I've never
My
been to
husband
Roots
sent
Tech.
me this last year. Dude, girly, if you want to go to Roots Tech this next year with me, we can hang out. I'll show you all the stuff. But I love Roots Tech. It was such a fabulous experience. They've got a lot of really knowledgeable experts you can talk to one-on-one, go to the classes, there's Q&As, and they had
Mhm.
full classes on how to use AI, how to do military family history research, how to do African American family research, how to use DNA, all of these different things in those tools. And that's how I learned about all the AI because I hadn't even thought of it either until I went to Roots Tech. And it wasn't until I saw that I was like, oh, that's genius. That's incredible. And so it's learning all of these different things. We've got so much at our fingertips to find this information, so much more than other generations. And so, yeah, your granddaddy was right. If anybody's going to figure it out, it's going to be you because you've got the skills, the intelligence, and the technology and the drive. So you got it all. You're ready to go.
Yeah, thank
Um,
you.
it's been so much fun listening on your live stream. So Lorena does these live streams on Florida history because she's from Florida. And that's one of the ones I really love tuning into because I love history. And you've talked about family history on there too. And that is, it's so important for people to really know these things and know where they came from. Um, there's a research study that came out a while ago that shows that individuals who are able to answer 21 basic questions about their family history are going to be more successful and resilient in their life. And it's because they
Hmm.
understand where they come from, they understand life is not easy, and they understand that they can overcome hard things. And that's really the power of family history is understanding that we're not alone and that there are amazing people who came before us and that they
Hmm.
accomplished incredible things and overcame incredible things and we can do that too. So I love that you gained that from what I've gathered. I'm assuming you gained that from your grandpa's stories is like, dude, I can be awesome too. And what it
Hmm.
so tell us what you can tell us about what your grandpa and he pushed to go to college and all those things, where that's led you. You do content, but you've done other stuff.
Yes, yes. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out where I'm gonna start with. I'd always been fascinated with the space program, but always fascinated by military technology. So one of the things that I researched in high school was exactly why is it that the United States got to the moon first? And when I researched that, just how many different things came together, even with something called Operation Paperclip. Google it, kids, where basically the US just came in and just swiped up everything, Werner von Braun and all of that stuff, and took it back here and just went from there. But how is it that we were going to get to space? Just the amount of work, the amount of brain power, the amount of brain power that was pushed downstream, because not only did you have these people working in these areas, but they were at the same time training the next generation of engineers and scientists to come along under them and and propagate that knowledge. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool stuff. How the heck does that work? And so I knew I always wanted to get involved in technology. I knew I always wanted to do something that would benefit warfighter as well. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I just know I kept getting told, well, at this point in history, basically, if you showed any aptitude towards science or engineering, basically a defense contractor was going to come knocking pretty soon. That was pretty much it. You're going to work for a defense contractor, and that's pretty much going to be your life, and then you're going to retire. And it's not like you were just sitting there. No, they were finding out who you were,
Oh,
where
heck
you
yeah.
were, yeah, who you were, where you were going, what school that you were attending, and rapt attention as to as to where you were. So let's just say further on in my career, I got the opportunity to work for Stark Industries. I'm coding that on purpose. I figure out what that is, and worked in intelligence. People make jokes about military intelligence. All right, they do, and yeah, it's kind of personal. I'm like, they do, but yes, and we do live on PowerPoint. I can say that. Yes, they always
Oh, death
joke.
by PowerPoint's definitely a
Yeah,
thing.
it's like, yeah, yeah. So I've heard all the jokes about military intelligence, but that's what I worked in, and I love the fact that I got to serve the country that way, even though I wasn't like in the military. But it's like I helped make all the lovely little toys that the military gets to use, including a couple of robots that died a very noble death over in the sandbox. Put it that way. I can say that too. Uh, it's like, did it save you? Okay. All right, then I'll forgive you for blowing up my robot.
Oh
But
my
things
gosh.
like that I got to do, of course, stuff that I can never really talk about, but at the same time, stuff that I can talk about is going to work with a certain purpose of what I'm working on is going to benefit something that's bigger than myself, that's going to save someone's life, that's going to provide an option no one thought of, um, something that's going to help people plan tactically, something that's maybe just will provide comfort, entertainment, either way, to be able to serve in that way. Because there's different ways to serve, but that one was like even cooler. You know, even when you see things like let's say like in the Transformers movie, Starscream is an F-22.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, I had to work on an F-22 before. Like I'm so mad they retired that, but one of the most technologically
You're not the
advanced
only one, by the way.
planes. Yeah, do you want to
There's
work on the
there's quite a
Joint
few
Strike
service
Fighter?
members who are not happy about that either.
No, I don't want to work on this because I got
'Cause
asked to, and I said no.
yeah. No, so that's again another thing that people don't always to think about is that there is so much support we get as the military, and it doesn't always come directly from service members. There are government contractors, and those government contractors provide a lot of IT because the government contractors can do more R&D and they can do it quicker and more effectively than the service members can. That's part of what Warner von Braun's legacy was, is yes, he was partnered with service members and largely they were supervising and making sure they didn't do naughty stuff. Because we didn't, it was, trust but verify.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, but that's the thing. I love you were talking about it on the live streams. We brought it up. Hidden Figures is a really great movie that talks about the computers for
Mm-hmm.
NASA. My grandfather in California worked on a different component for the lunar lander. He was like you. He never worked for the military. His brother-in-law was in the military, but he was a government contractor. He was an engineer. He worked with NASA. He worked with the Navy. He worked with a lot of different projects, most of which still have not been declassified. So someday, hopefully, we find out what Granddaddy was doing.
I know that
Um,
feeling.
but I'm he part of the reason why that meant so much to him is because his brother-in-law was fighting in Vietnam and Korea. And he's like, dude, I'm gonna do my part and I'm gonna get his back, even if it's as a civilian.
Mm-hmm.
So as a service member's spouse, thank you for people like you who are coming up with these smart gadgets that save my hubby's butt, because that's important.
Oh, you're welcome. We had so much fun. Well, fun and frustrations in it, but mostly fun. Like, yeah, we did that.
Now the you started doing how did you start doing content creation? That was yeah.
um, I got peer pressured into it. Let's see. If you go back to 2020, the whole uh
Yeah.
COVID, people basically being, stuck at home, all of that. Um, just started watching YouTube, and again, it kind of all started with The Last Jedi. I freaking hated that movie. I thought it was just me. Turned out there were a lot of other people that felt the same way, so I didn't feel, it's like, okay, I'm not completely crazy. But seeing people's different shows, going in their chats, like the Dark Council, I love them to death. I've been friends with those guys for years. I produce their show. It's fun watching me trying to rein them in, and sometimes succeeding and sometimes not. But we have a good time doing that. But before, when they were just on screen, I would just be in the chat talking to people, and then I'd talk to them. I'd bring stuff up, and they're just like, "What the heck is she saying?" And they're just like laughing at it. And eventually people are like, you know what, you should be on YouTube. I'm like, why? There's plenty of other people. Who's gonna watch me on YouTube just doing whatever? No, I just want to just be in the background. But people are like, no, you need to do a channel. When are you gonna do a channel? When are you gonna do a channel? Then more and more people started saying that. Guys from Dark Council were like, okay, you need to have your own channel. You need to show your face. Mark with the C is like, you need to show your face. You need to show your pretty face. Uh Album Nas was like, okay, I'm having a stream. You're gonna show your face, right? I said, I don't know. I guess. And then I finally did. And people were like, it's so good to see your face. I'm like, okay, yeah, all right. But what is it that really makes me special? I'm saying this facetiously. There's so many things out there. Who the heck wants to listen to me? Well, that was before I really understood exactly what content creation truly was. I just knew that I was just doing stuff that I wanted to do and put out there, and how I talk, how my crazy family, weird family in Florida, why it's so weird and why people are so fascinated with Florida man. I'm like, oh yeah, I can explain that to you, why it is the way that it is. But then seeing and becoming friends with other content creators and starting to realize everyone has a niche. Everyone has, you know, a story, from kids that like to talk about, you know, toys they saw in the market, to, you know, mothers who were just like, you know what, I don't know what the heck to make for dinner. I don't feel like making dinner. There's all these kids, but you know what? I made this recipe a couple of weeks ago that's in the freezer and it's actually still good. So let me show you exactly how I made that. From grandmothers playing, video games, to one of my favorite old Italian ladies making pasta from hand by hand.
Oh, heck yeah.
That one fascinated me. And from there down the rabbit hole, seeing like people, like our age, reacting to videos of, you know, grandmothers talking about recipes they used to make in the depression, and we're like making notes like, okay, yeah, I have to do it. Yeah, I made that. That's actually pretty good. So that's how I got into content creation, and somehow it's made me extremely cool with my really young nieces and nephews. They think they tell everybody all the time, yeah, my auntie, she's on YouTube. Dude. I'm like, what? It's public access, pretty much.
Oh,
If you
yeah.
want to be honest about it, but they're just like, yeah, we want to be on YouTube. Can I be in your video? It's funny how things have
I
changed.
told my kids, I'm like, no, you cannot be in my videos.
Hmm.
And this is not a career, it's a hobby.
Yes, that's so
Sometimes a
hard to
very
get
expensive
across.
hobby.
Hmm.
So, like, yeah, there's some people who can make a career out of it and make a business out of it, and that's great. But you should never, in my opinion, this is my 2 cents, people, you should never go into content creation thinking you're going to become a millionaire, because
No,
that's a 0.001 option there.
yeah, just think of it as, hey, I have money to buy a pizza that I hadn't have to put on my own money for. Like every once in a while. It's like, oh yeah, we got coffee, we got pizza, I could pay for a
Mhm.
movie for free. You kind of think about it, like that.
Yeah, and that's what I have to tell my kids and their friends. It's like, no, 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 no. Podcasting might seem hip and cool, and YouTube is hip and cool, but like this did not exist when we were in high school.
No,
And
no. And it's a
so
great economic lesson to teach. Like, do you really want to know what's involved in doing a YouTube channel?
it's a lot of work. People don't realize. And until you make it to a certain level, you've got to do 90% or most of it by yourself. I'm still at the do it all myself phase of existence. And yeah, I it's a part-time job that I don't get paid for.
That is exactly it. It is a part-time job that you do not really get paid for in the beginning. Some folks can probably help you out, which is cool. Kind of starts that way, but it's a lot of work that you have to do from the beginning. And I had no idea how much work it was, because I'm just, floundering my way around. And the more subscribers that I got, and then eventually got monetized. And I'm like, okay, well, now I actually have to figure out what the heck it is that I really have to do. And some people have editors. I do not. Uh, that does cost money if you want, if you want a really, really good one. I have one guy who does my thumbnails, CJ, God bless him. He's been with me for like over 5 years. So he does 90% of my thumbnails. Sometimes I'm like, well, I need to know how to do some of this. So I'll do some of them myself. They don't look anywhere near as good as his. So I'm kind of judicious where I use his and where I use, my homemade ones that people aren't really going to look at. But it's like between the equipment that you have to have. I mean, the big huge spanking computer I have back here, the gaming one, that's probably the first really, really huge new computer that I've had like in maybe 10 years, because I started out with a computer that I already had that had enough power, um, till I outgrew it, and then got another, started small, another computer, fried it, got another computer, fried it with how much of a demand was on it. But that's how it goes. And even when you start making money in a channel, I say making money like that, because the government wants their royalty cut after they
Oh,
get it.
heck yeah.
Uh, Getting, equipment. I had like a little USB microphone that worked well for like a couple of years, and got this one maybe a year ago. Only because the other one I outgrew the technology.
Yeah.
So that's something that always, that happens either way. Even if you're making money, how there's a good chunk of it that's going right, that should go right back into your channel.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And so much is going back into building it up again. Yeah. I'm just, thank you so much for being willing to just come and talk about your military family, family history stuff, everything. I'm so grateful you're willing to do this. I really love these stories. I think it's important, like I said, for us to remember these people. Your grandpa's not around anymore, is he?
No, no, he passed away in when was it? Um, he passed away in 1995, and the reason why I remember that is because when I graduated from college, he got to see me graduate from college. He'd never been to college, so he got to see me graduate from college. So when he passed away, before I graduated with my master's degree, um, that was like devastating. I couldn't even go to the graduation ceremony, because in my mind, the one that he saw me, that was like the only one that I wanted to remember. So, but yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it just wasn't going to be the same without him.
No, no, it really was not going to be the same.
Yeah. But I'm so grateful for you and remembering his story. That's really the takeaway I want people to get from this conversation is we can preserve the memory of those we love and their service records and their experiences, and we can find more. It's not a dead end. Once we lose them, the story's not over. And the more we find out and piece together with the amazing technology we have access to, the more we can pass down to the next generation. So you can tell your daughter more because you can find records and maybe it's things that he didn't share. And that's the goal is to be able to keep these stories, these legacies of courage and bravery going so that they can inspire and encourage the next generation as well. So,
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. You're doing great, great, great stuff here. I love it.
well, thank you again. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I feel incredibly grateful to Lorena for coming on and allowing us to use her exploration of her family history and her grandfather's military record as a case study to help you all learn a little bit more about researching and learning about our family's military history. It's as we find these stories, we can learn and grow and gain insight from what our family members went through in their military experience. Also, if you have any family members who are veterans who are still alive, we need to preserve those stories before they pass on. And I would love to help with that process. Please contact me. Let me know. I would love to help record those, whether to share on the podcast or just so that you have a record yourselves. Additionally, if you're a military spouse or have any resources for the military community, I'd love to hear about it. We want to build a community of support and encouragement that helps uplift everyone involved. And that said, please like, share, subscribe, click it. Let's stick it to the algorithm because your encouragement, your support, and engagement is really what gets this message out to everybody so that we can continue to be a positive force in the world. So I am grateful for all of your encouragement and support. Thank you so much. And let's be the good that we want to see in the world. As always, I'm your host, Sam Wolf, and you've been listening to Life of a Military Wife.
Spouses and veterans, hearts that won't quit, telling the truth about all of it. This life we live is hard and real, giving a voice to the lives that we live. But this life we live is warm but strong, and every story deserves its song.